Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on this Friday afternoon on Gulfstream today. And well, we are ramping up for a very exciting, not only weekend, but pretty much the next couple of weeks, aren't we?
The next couple of weeks or so, we're 8 days out from the Pegasus World Cup, so it is pretty much all Pegasus all the time around here. I know that's what everyone at Gulfstream seems to be working on lately, but of course it's very exciting. But this is also kicking off, as Gabby mentioned, an exciting weekend in that tomorrow we have, first of all, California Chrome working in the morning, so that's Pegasus related, but then it's Sunshine Millions as well as the Eclipse Awards.
Yes, we're going to have an action-packed afternoon tomorrow, of course, as you said, starting early. You can come out, watch California Chrome work, enjoy some breakfast too. All of that happening tomorrow, and of course, Sunshine Millions Day. But let's pay attention to today, and today is Beat the Expert Day. And this go around, well, Ron Nicoletti is back up.
He is, and we keep joking with him that he's cheap speed, but he has actually done better than both of us.
Ron Cheap Speed Nicoletti is his new name.
But as I said, he has actually done better than both of us on Beat the Expert Day, but he starts off really strong and then he does kind of fizzle out a little bit. So we'll see if he can maintain that speed this week, but it's a lot of fun and you can win one of those great polos, plus the bragging rights to say you beat Ron Cheap Speed Nicoletti.
It is all about the bragging rights. So you have a chance to win that great polo too, but definitely the bragging rights there. And the past couple of weeks we have had record number of participants. So this thing is just continuing to grow in popularity. So make sure that you do that tomorrow. Of course, you have to get your picks in before today. Sorry, I'm thinking about get your picks in today before the first post. So you have 66 minutes to do so. So get to handicapping. But now we will get to our wagering menu. Here are our featured wagers of the day. And race 1 does start the 50-cent early pick 5. That is a mandatory payout each and every day. The first 5 races of the day. So we get to the 4th race on the card, and in race 4, that only starts the rolling super high 5. Again, that takes place in races of 7 or more betting interest. So race 4 starts the super high 5. As we turn our attention to the immediate next race, race 5 does start the 20-cent Rainbow 6. We have a carryover over $26,000 in that. And of course, race 6 starts the final pick 5 of the day. That is a 50-cent based wager. And Acacia will have tickets for both the early and late pick 5. I will tackle the Rainbow 6, and it's a beautiful day here in South Florida. We are fast and firm on the turf.
There is nothing more that you could want for a beautiful Friday afternoon.
All right, well, let's get straight to it, Acacia. We start things off with this maiden 12,500 event, 1-turn mile on the main track, and always a little bit of a difficult way to start the early pick 5.
It is, and we'll give you a look at my ticket. I did find a single, so that did help me out a little bit. I just used 2 horses in this first leg, though I would have liked to go deeper because it is one of those lower level maiden races that sometimes you just never really know what's going to happen. So I'm using Vintner's Special and Heavenly Lucky. Heavenly Lucky, you see very early even money on the board, and that did allow me to spread using 4 horses in the second race. My single will come in race number 3 with March for Chad Brown, one of 2 that he has in there. Now, I do think there are some other quality runners in there, but I thought trying to find a single, that would be the one. Then 4 deep in the 4th as well, and 2 deep in a nice maiden 25 to close it out for $32.
And we look at today's opener, the 3rd Vintner's Special here. Figures to take a lot of money. Is 9 to 5 on the morning line, and the past 2 starts, they've been on the turf and now coming back to the fast main track today. But the last time she was on a main track, Acacia, that was a long time ago. She's now a 4-year-old. Last time she was on the dirt was when she was 2.
She was, and this is a big reason of why I couldn't find the reasons to put her on top. She did run well in her only dirt start, but that was against maiden special weight in October of 2015. She then took about 14-month layoff, came back in the barn of Eduardo Espora Jr., tried the turf, didn't really run there at all, then went back to Ron Spatz, where she didn't really run well in maiden claiming on the turf last time. So now she takes a very aggressive drop once again to this 12.5 level, about the lowest as you can go, and goes back to the dirt. So I guess they're trying to go back to what she showed success with at the very start, but I don't know if she still has that.
It is a big question mark there, and I guess people are kind of being a little bit more attracted to the number 6, Heavenly Lucky, in terms of early wagering for trainer Nick Zito, who did take the drop in class to the maiden 12,500 level, but I think that this has been more of a steady drop, as she didn't really show much against maiden $20,000 company.
And she didn't. She was having a very tough time against special weight early in her career, and they really did try to keep her in special weight company. She did find a muddy track one time. She did try sprinting and then going long, trying to find the right spot for her. So when she did drop to claiming and she didn't show anything off of about a year layoff too, then they took that drop to the 12.5 last time, but she found a sloppy track. So she hasn't always had the easiest spots to run in, but you do respect the connections and do hope that now third off the layoff and getting to a fast track she'll improve.
And Nick Zito has had a great meet so far. He finally got that career milestone of 2,000 career wins, and he immediately followed that up with another win. So you and I both kind of saw the first race kind of the same way, just thinking that those are the two horses to beat on form. As we get to the second race, upper level maiden $50,000 event, 6 furlongs onto the main track, and we do have a spotlight replay of two horses that are coming out of the same race, and one of them being the one Dealer's Girl, who is 9 to 5 on the morning line. And Dealer's Girl, she actually managed to make the lead that day from the rail post position, but Acacia, I think that she just managed to kind of go average early fractions. Should she have had enough to kind of sustain that speed that day?
I don't really know. You know, I think that actually she has a little bit more excuses in that she was off a little slow and then got hustled to the front. But what I don't like is the kind of race that she's coming out of. Faith and Hope was the winner. She ran very poorly in starter allowance company next time out. Dealer's Girl has some speed, but I don't know if that was enough of a performance to warrant stepping up even a little bit more in class. She goes from the 35 to the 50,000. There Goes Bella comes out of that same race, the number 2 horse, and she was making up a little ground, but kind of the same thing from her. They both ran solidly, but I don't know if it was really as impressive as it might appear on paper.
It is, in my opinion, a very big step up in class. I know sometimes we see maiden $35,000 races. They can come up pretty tough, and it warrants respect for horses now going to the $50,000 level, but I'm kind of in agreement with you. I thought that that was just maybe an average race. So you go in a different direction to the number 5, Miss Helen, who is a first-time starter.
And I can't blame you for taking Bun Bun. We always kept to respect the speed of George Navarro horses, but I just thought maybe a first-time starter might be where this one's going to come from. But so that's why I did land on this, and I didn't show this stat, but Michael Tomlinson with first-time starters in sprints does win about 14% of the time, and it is a positive ROI. And this one does hint at quite a bit of ability on the work tab. Going back, though, an interesting thing to note before we get off of There Goes Bella and Dealer's Girl, we'll show a stat on Jane Sibeli for There Goes Bella, the number 2 horse in here. First time blinkers on the dirt with maiden claimers. She does have very strong numbers, and it's a positive ROI of 270. So perhaps maybe the blinkers on will help this filly to move forward even more. But as we said, she does have that class step up to deal with.
We could even maybe see Dealer's Girl and There Goes Bella with the addition of blinkers on. Maybe they have kind of more equal speed today versus last time. Dealer's Girl was a little bit more sharp with her early speed, but Bun Bun, I can't believe I'm picking a horse named Bun Bun, but I do think that she might be a little bit more versatile than what her last race would suggest. You know, they were stretching out to 7 furlongs. I do think that that's going to sharpen her up. Now cutting back to 3/4. She has a good bottom underneath of her. And in the afternoon, physically, I've seen just a gradual improvement in her. She looked a little bit better last time out. I'm hoping she maybe takes that step forward once again today.
And she definitely could. She did run much better last time when dropping to the maiden claiming. Her first 2 maiden special weight races were pretty poor, but that class drop did seem to help her last out.
All right, we get to the third race on the card, a nice allowance optional claiming event, 1 1/16 on the turf, and this is where your single comes into play. So we will start off with a spotlight replay of the number 3, March, and not last time out in the Knickerbocker, but 2 starts back when he was narrowly defeated at Saratoga against 3 other than Allowance Company. And that was a very tough field. Obviously, McKagan won that race. We saw him take the Artie Schiller as well more recently. But this is a horse who I've been very tough on. I thought that the Hollywood Derby really set up for him, and Chiropractor. We haven't seen anything from Chiropractor since then, but this was a strong race for March.
And going back to the Hollywood Derby, we did see come back in the Breeders' Cup and run exceptionally well. So maybe it just was from the top two. And I agree. I tried so hard, honestly, to pick against March in this race, and I just couldn't because I thought that that race in Saratoga was a very good performance from him. In the Knickerbocker, for sure, he ran against some really nice runners in Heart to Heart and Jay Gatsby, for sure. Now, he has his reservations. He's still 0 for 4 on turf. He hasn't had a win on turf just yet. And his races where he's really seemed to win do seem to come a bit shorter. He does have one win going long on the dirt. So that's where my reservations come. But he had about a 9-month layoff. He came back in that race at Saratoga that we just showed. He had a yielding turf last time out in the Knickerbocker. I think he's kind of on the upswing since that layoff, certainly for Chad Brown. And what I like most of all is that he looks like he's going to be one to set a perfect trip in a nice stalking spot behind the speed of Little Balter.
And that's why I used him in here, because I do think that he will show a little bit of tactical speed. And hey, here's the story with this horse. Honestly, in the Hollywood Derby, he ran a huge race. But I think it was a little bit deceiving because, as I said, Chiropractor has not done anything since then, going against even Allowance Company, let alone Stakes Company. But in there was Alm. There was Money Multiplier. There were good horses that left that field to go on and do good things. And this horse, I thought, ran a huge race despite the slow fractions against Allowance Company at Saratoga. So Knickerbocker, I think it's an excusable performance. It is his day to win, though, in my opinion. So if he doesn't, I'm going to be, I don't know, kind of upset
March
that I picked him.
on warning.
Yes, he's on warning.
Here.
But Little Balter, where I kind of like this horse maybe for the exacta, is because there aren't, other than March, who I think can be a little bit more forwardly placed, there's not a lot of speed. And I know Little Balter is kind of much lower in terms of class, but he could have that tactical advantage.
He certainly could. And that is why as I said, I think that March will sit just behind him. And Little Balter, if he gets loose on the front end, for sure, but he does have to step up big time in competition. You do have a horse that's sitting on a poor performance on the synthetic at Woodbine last out, and that's Conquest Typhoon. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. He did show a little bit in that race, but certainly would have liked to see more. But he definitely has quite a bit of back class, multiple graded stakes placed.
And he is a grade 2 winner, I think, as well. But the thing with Conquest Typhoon, especially when you get into these smaller fields, he wants a hot pace, and he wants to make that one move from the back of the pack, excuse me, I can't talk today. But the bad thing with him is that a lot of the time in these shorter fields, everybody just gets all together and grouped up in the same type of company, and it takes him out of his preferred running style. So that's where I thought he might have been at a disadvantage.
And that could happen to him. He could be kind of stuck there. And a horse that was off slow last time out, but has in the past shown some early interest, is the number 5 Saham for Chad Brown. And we'll show a stat on Chad Brown. First after the trainer switch, this will be the first start for this horse in his barn since moving from Brendan Walsh. First after the trainer switch in turf routes, specifically at Gulfstream, his numbers are very good, but it is just 3 for 13 in the win, 69% in the money, $1.27 ROI. Broadly, not narrowing it down to Gulfstream, these percentages on the ROI are much higher, but looking specifically here, this is not one of his strongest moves.
And it's a weird horse to kind of like, because he used to show speed, as he said, and then he just got in this habit of just not breaking very well and just kind of taking himself out of the game early. And whether or not that was something that perhaps Brendan Walsh trained into him, we sometimes see trainers really like a distance turf horse to settle early and make that move. But a lot of the time, that's where problems arise. So if he can get to the speed that he used to show earlier in his career, I think that he is another one to look out for. But a small but very potent field there in the third race as we get to the fourth on the card, an allowance optional claimer, 6 furlongs on the main track. And I went against Worth Avenue last time out, and I'm going against her today.
I know you're going to keep on trying, and I can't blame you. You keep wondering, when is this horse going to stop winning by open lengths? Because
maybe when she wins like a grade 1 or grade 2, I don't know.
Maybe then it'll be by a neck or something. Who knows? But she's only had 2 races, and honestly, she's been sensational in both of them. She drew off and won by 9 1/4 in her debut at Gulfstream Park West in 35 maiden claiming. You wonder, was that race a fluke? But then she comes back and starter optional claiming last time here at Gulfstream and wins by 6 1/4. So she just keeps winning.
And we'll show that spotlight replay. And because I thought I kind of wanted to go back and show the beginning of the race, because we did see her be much more forwardly placed in her career debut. Now, in this race, it looked like the rider made a cognizant decision to take her back off of the pace and maybe find a little bit more versatility. We didn't really see anything there, but after that, she just kind of rounded the field and won very easily with enough left in the tank. So that's where I think that this is, you do respect her because she can be very quick, but she can also settle from off of the pace. I still don't think that it was a very strong race, but who's to say that this is a strong race?
And that is the question. You do have the number 1 Brahms cat who's coming out of the house party.
We have a special visitor.
We do have a special visitor.
Welcome.
Mike Joyce is trying to make us laugh on air, so we'll just wave. We have everybody's in town for the Pegasus. It's all so exciting.
Gulfstream's the place to be.
It is the place to be, and it's warm, so who can beat it? But Brahms cat coming out of the house party.
Yes, we will, and obviously that was a much tougher race than what Worth Avenue defeated last time out. And we won't show that replay because I wanted to go back and show the spotlight replay of Brahms Cat when she actually did win, because I thought she had to overcome a couple of obstacles that particular day. And we can see her, the number 3, she rated off of the pace. This was her first time actually on a fast main track. There was a bit of a mishap earlier, as you can see one of the horses did unseat the rider. But this horse, and it looked like pace was actually holding together quite nicely. We see the 1 and the 8 kind of battling it out, and she just comes from off the pace. She still looks a bit green, and she just runs past both of them effortlessly. And we were talking about the house party, I believe, last week, how the track was really favoring speed types. We saw Bodie's Dream and Wildcat Kate go 1-2 around the track, but I thought I saw most of an effort from Brahms Cat trying to pick up the pieces.
She really did, and she ran very well to win her maiden, and that was in State Bred Company. And then she did have that sloppy track. She was running against 2 quality horses in Bodie's Dream and Wildcat Kate. Regular rider Jose Alvarez, who's been aboard all 4 times, will stick with Worth Avenue in here, and you can understand that. He does ride frequently for Aubrey Mirage and with those open length victories, but I agree. Brahms Cat is one to respect, and if you remember, I did go 4 deep in the pick 5 to include her. But a horse that I had quite a bit of interest in is the number 6 Woot Woot for Jenna Antonucci, who has faced Stakes Company and finished a distant second in California at Santa Anita. So this will be her first Gulfstream race, but she has been working steadily at Palmettos. And we'll show a stat for Jenna Antonucci. First after the trainer switch in dirt sprints, this is over the past 5 years, 16% win, 32% in the money, and is a positive ROI of 210. So I'm wondering if this one might be able to show a little bit now coming to Florida.
And you're right, she did face really solid competition, and that's where you have to kind of make a decision. Do you think that Worth Avenue is going to improve now, facing maybe a little bit of a tougher field than she did last time out? She sure enough did win so easily that you would think that she could, but Woot Woot is a horse that previously, under Peter Miller's handling, she finished second behind American Gal, who was one of the very well-touted Bob Baffert fillies going into the Breeders' Cup. She finished third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So I think from a class perspective, there's a lot going on, but there undoubtedly Worth Avenue does have some talent. So I think today is probably the real acid test.
It is.
So that is races 1 through 4. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll tackle the 20-cent Rainbow 6 and late pick 5 right after this.
January 28th at Gulfstream Park, an icon takes flight. The world's richest thoroughbred horse race. 12 of the sport's finest horses. One race. $12 million on the line. Watch, wager, witness. Go to PegasusWorldCup.com for more.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudette joined by Acacia Courtney, and well, race 5 is time to start the 20-cent Rainbow Six. We have a $26,000 carryover in the sequence today, and here is my ticket. I didn't find a single once again, but using 3 horses to start things off with a 1, 2, 3. Hopefully it is as easy as 1, 2, 3 as we move along to the 6th race using the 1 and the 5, race 7 3 deep, as well as race 8 3 deep, and in the 9th I only did use both the 5 and the 9. Now K-Mac is the horse to beat in there. I did try to beat the horse with the Fernando Abreu horse, who did scratch out of there. So just covering my bases with another horse there, and then capping it off with the 1-9 in the final leg of the sequence. $43.20. I think that's pretty affordable.
You did. You went to the Ron Nicoletti School of Pick 5 pricing with the $43.20. I like it. And I agree. I thought that with the late Pick 5 sequence, I wasn't able to find a single either. There are some races you can narrow in on, but it is hard to single down just onto one.
All right, well, we do start it off with this maiden $25,000 event, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. And to you, too, it was easy as 1, 2, 3, but you wind up on the number 3, Tommy's Top Cat.
I went 3, 2, 1 backwards in here, and I'm taking a little bit of a guess with Tommy's Top Cat for Alan Iwinski, who's first off the claim as well and trying the turf for the first time. Now, those stats are certainly not the strongest for this barn, but he is a first-time gelding, and he's by Wildcat Air. We know that Wildcat Airs can run pretty much any surface. Gets Emisel Jaramillo in the saddle, and I had some questions about a couple of the other potential favorites in this race, and so I ended up landing on this one, hoping that the turf and the ultimate equipment change will help him out.
And we could see it. The only thing about him is that he was claimed for $35,000 and now immediately listed as a first-time gelding and then trying the turf. So it looks like they're kind of throwing the kitchen sink, hoping that he responds to them, but it very well could. I liked him in here as well, obviously using him in the pick 6. The 1 Padre was one that I did prefer, just because I do think that he eventually might want to go maybe a little bit longer. I thought the mile probably was a better distance, or maybe a mile and a 16th. But this race came up. He's making a lateral move in terms of class. And I thought it was an okay race for the level. We saw Giant's Voice win that race with Wilshire Star. Overall, Michael Matz with this type of move, with maiden second-time starters going to the turf. It's not the strongest, but it's difficult because you try to find horses who find stats for the 7.5 furlong races, and this is a huge disagreement that I've had with several people in the past. Is 7.5 furlongs a true sprint?
Not at Gulfstream. I think, yes, it counts as a sprint, but it is hard because it's 2 turns,
exactly.
and it is closer to a mile here at this track. Now, I agree with you. I think that this horse wants longer, and that's why I didn't put him on top. He is second-time starter for Michael Matz. We do normally see this barn take a more patient approach. Sometimes it takes a couple races for them to win. This just might be another experience building, but you have to have respect for him off that last performance, because he was way back early, off screen, and then he came rolling to close and make up some ground. Now, he did finish 6th, but I think visually that race was much stronger than it appears on paper. But now he gets even a little bit less distance than he had last time.
I know. He's going to have to break a little bit sharper and get himself in the game sooner. But the 2 Slam does get blinkers on today and stretching to 2 turns from a 5 furlong sprint. And he's one that would probably likely be poorly placed.
I would imagine so, especially with the addition of the blinkers. And he has had a race on the turf. He's first off the claim for John Mateen and steps up slightly to this 25 level.
That's a hard race to start things off. I even kind of like the 7 Milo Diamond, thinking that he could improve with distance. He started to pick things up late, but just trying to stick to 1, 2, 3 to kick us off in the Rainbow Six as we turn our pages to the 6th race on the card, a maiden 12,500. We have the early pick 5 that starts with a low-level maiden and the late pick 5 that starts with a low-level maiden. Not always easy. Acacia, how did you see the sequence?
They don't make it easy on us, but there are certainly some opportunities for value. So my ticket is a little bit more expensive today. It's $54, as I wasn't able to find a single either. So I'm using 3 horses in this first leg, with the 5 Singleton, who does promise to be a heavy favorite, but backing it up with Into the Future and Howlin' Mad Smith. Then I also have 3 deep in the next, that maiden special weight, 3 in the 8th as well. And in the 9th, I'm also using K-Mac and Keystone for Victor. I think that those are the 2 horses. I agree that K-Mac is the one to beat. And then just the 1 and the 8 in the last. I believe we have the same 2 horses in those last 2 legs. So hopefully hopefully we make it there, $54.
Okay, best of luck to your ticket there. And the 5 Singleton. Well, by no means should this horse be a single in your late pick 5, but is 6-5 on the morning line.
And I used him on top, but as you can see, I was not going to single him in that first race. Now, he does have some speed for sure, but he finished a distant third last time out against $30,000 maidens at Churchill. Second off the claim for the Maker Barney is taking that aggressive drop to this 12-5 level, so of course, that's the biggest question with him. He's 0 for 10, but we do have a stat with Mike Maker. Second off the claim, in the money last time out on the dirt. Wins 39% of the time, 70% in the money, and a 220 ROI. But what we say this all the time, it's hard sometimes to find negative stats for the Maker Barn. So you do have to take that into account, as the drop, I think, is the most questionable.
And 2 things that I've found throughout the past couple of weeks, and Mike Maker does a fantastic job. His horses are just winning everywhere, really, he places them. But 2, I think, vulnerable places that Mike Maker runs his horses is 1, these really steep class droppers. They just haven't been running to their previous form. And secondly, recent maidens coming back and facing winners for the first time. Usually it's when they face them second time. So Singleton, I don't like that he takes this big drop off of time away, and his workouts have been very slow up at Palm Meadows. So I think this might be a get-out race, so to speak, for Ken and Sarah Ramsey. So instead, I did land on the 1. Fletcher is Golden, who I honestly just think sits the trip to the inside. Yes, he was exposed against this level of competition last time out, but now second time out of the Armando de la Cerda barn. This is an angle that I've been playing, and it's been mighty fruitful lately.
It has. Second time for Armando has been really paying off. We've seen horses come down from a lot of them from Danny Gargan, like this horses, and he finished in a decent 4th last time. He could be the one sitting in the catbird seat. I did have some interest to the outside with the number 9 Into the Future, who does have some speed as well. Now, he might press Singleton and set it up for somebody like Fletcher's Golden, or if there's even a faster pace for the 8 Howlin' Mad Smith. We were just talking about what a good meet Nick Zito has been having, but Into the Future tried the dirt for the first time last time, and he ran very well for Nick Gonzalez, better than some of his first-time Gulfstream shippers have run, in that he was only beaten half a length.
Okay, well, that is the 6th race to kick off the late pick 5 as we get to the final pick 4 of the day. Race 7, 5 furlongs on the turf, and we'll start things off with the number 1 Difference Maker, who is probably the horse to beat, but this is a very interesting race. Now, last time out on the 16th of December, we will show that spotlight replay. She did draw an inside post position that day. She once again draws an inside post position. She's going to probably have to take back and let kind of the other pace in here settle in front of her. Overall, we saw Forgive win that race, and it kind of looked like the pace was collapsing in front of everybody, and everybody from the back of the field was picking up the pieces and winning. I thought it was a good performance, but I thought it could be better, maybe.
It certainly could, and she does have to take another step forward. You're right about that. But that was her first race off of an 11-month layoff. So I'm a little bit more forgiving of her not having so much to offer in the stretch. I did think that she was still tenacious to hold on at the rail there while there were other horses closing, as you mentioned. And we have a stat on trainer Ralph Nix, who did actually just notch his 400th career victory yesterday on his birthday, I believe. Congratulations.
Sunday. He shares my birthday.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So ahead of his birthday, everybody's got birthdays around this time. But he is 22%, 50% in the money, and it's a 316 ROI. So this is, again, second off the layoff, maiden special weight on turf. So I like this this gelding to move forward off of that last race.
And we very well could see it, because even though I didn't think it was that tough of a race, and it kind of looked like all the horses were having a cavalry charge in the latter half of the race, you're absolutely right in that he can improve in his second race off that pretty sizable layoff. I went with a very strange horse in the number 3 Orleans Avenue, and you know when you're just looking at a race and some horse just intrigues you for whatever reason, and that came with the 3 Orleans Avenue. We've seen Nick Juarez and Nick Zito, they team up for a lot of success, whether it be on the dirt or the turf, and he just has sneaky good races, in my opinion, against a little bit tougher, and he's got good speed. So whether or not he makes the lead in here, he just seems like a really sneaky sort to me. He's very nicely bred for the turf, too.
He really is, and you can be forgiving of that last race, as it was a race taken off of the turf at Aqueduct. He just stopped out of that race, and now he's making a start for Nick Zito, and the Nick and Nick combination has been very powerful lately. There is some speed in the number 6 engraved for Kathleen O'Connell, I think, and maybe Snicker, the 2 will be forwardly placed as well, but I did have some interest in a first-time starter, too, and 2 Exageres for Christophe Clement. I probably butchered that pronunciation, but this one is nicely bred as well, and Christophe does do very well with first-time starters on the turf, plus Javier Castellano in the saddle.
Is by Elusive Quality, and it makes him kin to Dr. Chit, who was second in the Amsterdam, and that horse actually was a dirt and synthetic sprinter, so this horse could definitely show some speed in his first start. Even the 2 Snicker, this is a horse who at Santa Anita did run on the downhill the 6.5 furlong race, and that was an okay race, as we saw the 3rd place finisher, a horse that finished just in front of him, finished second in an A other than at Del Mar with an 88 Beyer speed figure. And this horse actually has good works, and we're talking about horses that might have a lot of speed. He looks to be a closer.
He certainly could, and he's one I think that's a must-use as well. Again, this was a race to use a few horses in for me. It is, I think, a little bit more wide open than it may appear on paper.
And that's a tough race.
Yeah.
It's a good betting race, though, if you have a little bit of an opinion. As we get to the 8th on the card to kick off the final pick 3 of the day, non-winners of 2 lifetime, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. And finally, we are in agreement here with not only the 8 Sassy Astray, but it's a 10-to-1 shot too.
It is, and I was pleasantly surprised to see you pick this one as well. So hopefully we're on the same bandwagon. I think the other day we both picked a 15-to-1 shot that ended up going off at 5-2 for Armando. So hopefully we get a better price on this one and we both get this horse home. But I've had some interest in Sassy Astray for a while, and she does have to certainly improve off of that last race. But she was bumped back at the start last time, and it was against 30,000 non-winners of 2. It
was against slightly tougher, and I thought that they were taking a really aggressive approach and stepping her up to that level versus figuring to run her in a spot like this off of that maiden $20,000 score. But that maiden race gives me a little bit of confidence in her ability to face this level of competition. And yes, she did run horribly, but as you said, she broke, and then she checked, and then she never looked like she put her head down after that. So when that happens early in the race, you never know what kind of mishap may happen. But I do like the fact that it attracts the likes of Jose Lizcano, who is obviously one of the better turf riders down here. So there's a lot going on in this race, but you also did have some interest in the number 1, Liana Starr, to the inside.
She has some tactical speed, and she's taking a class drop as well. She actually comes out of that same race as Sassy Astray, and she showed some more speed in there, and then she did kind of just fade and give way. So I think the class relief is needed. She does promise to take some money, though, on that class drop.
And we also use a 10 Bull Empress to the outside, but we've seen it be very, very difficult for horses that kind of have that mid-level speed to work out a trip from the outermost post position at this distance. It's been very tough.
It is. A 7.5 furlongs is pretty short into the turn, so getting a good position early is critical.
All right, we get to the 9th race on the card, 9 furlongs onto the turf for the starter allowance optional claiming event. And the 5 K-Mac is who I scratched into. I liked Quiet Force to try to pull the upset, but this horse ran very impressively last time out in the Claiming Crown Emerald. And we will show that spotlight replay, as does Keystone for Victory. He came out of that race, and Market Outlook as well. But I think we can all agree that K-Mac probably had the worst trip of all, where he was a little wide going into the first turn from that outside post position. Again, he drew post 12 out of 14 that day. He was the number 13, but he just had a wide trip throughout and extremely wide in the final turn, as we can see him now starting to round the bend.
He did. He was really widest of all in the stretch, and I thought given everything that he had to deal with in that race, I was really hoping to try and get him home there, and I think the post really did hurt him. And you can see him on the outside. He's so far out as they start to close down to the stretch. So I think that that's the hardest part for him, that he had to deal with that. Keystone for Victory had the smoothest trip in that race. He was up, he was close to the pace. Now, I had some interest in market outlooks coming out of here as well. He had to steady slightly at the start, and he started to move along the rail. There were lots of horses coming to his outside closing, and he had a tough spot of being stuck more towards the rail. But he couldn't get by Keystone for Victory, but he did have a little bit of a kick in the stretch.
And I think that's where trip handicapping comes into play, in opinions in trip handicapping, because do you want a horse that lost a lot of ground throughout the entirety of the race, going into the first turn, coming out of the final turn like K-Mac, or do you want a horse like Market Outlook, who did save ground the entire way, had to steady a little bit at the quarter pole, but had full opportunity to pass a horse like Keystone for Victory? So that's where opinions in trip handicapping I find very interesting, but there's no doubt about it. Keystone for Victory had the easiest trip of all, and a beautiful ride by Jose Ortiz, who was just on fire that day.
He did. I believe he had 4 winners that day, and he closed it out at the end with Keystone for Victory in the Emerald. He was very game in the stretch. You can't knock him for that, as there were a lot of horses closing, but he was right up there. He showed speed. He was close to the pace, and he was able to hold on.
Okay, well, we kind of saw that race the same way, in kind of honing in between those horses that are coming out of the Claiming Crown Emerald. As we get to the nightcap, race 10, maiden $20,000 race, 5 furlongs onto the turf, and you did go to the number 8, No Phone Joe, first-time starter. Where's his phone? Where's Joe's phone?
I don't know what happened to Joe's phone, but I hope he finds it soon. But I do like a first-time starter in this nightcap, as it is maiden 20,000. Sometimes you just have reservations about the rest of the field, and so we'll show a stat on Eddie Keneally for first-time starters in turf sprints. He wins 24% of the time, 53% in the money, and it's a $5.52 ROI. Now, I don't know if you're going to get an exceptional price on this horse in here, as he does look to be one that figures. Corey Lannery riding in great form lately as well, but you certainly can win with this kind of move for a firster from the Keneally barn.
And maybe we're just trying to be creative with the first-time starter. I think the one, Stoneheart, is definitely the horse to beat. No Phone Joe, he might show up, he may not, but I felt at least a little bit confidently in just using 2 horses in the final leg of the sequence. The thing that I don't like about No Phone Joe is that he has been working for forever. We see workouts from kind of in the middle of the summer, and he still hasn't managed to get his first start. So that's always something that I don't like to see in a first-time starter, but he is starting at the $20,000 level, and he's got a great pedigree with Lasix. But Stoneheart, I think you and I can both agree that this is the horse to beat. Meeting, in my opinion, much easier company. I know it doesn't look like a big drop in class, but this race has a lot of questionable horses.
We alluded to that earlier, that sometimes the maiden 35 level does come up a bit stronger, and so he's getting a slight class drop. It looks like, I mean, first-time starters look to be his biggest foes in this last race, and he tried the turf last time. He had to go wide, but he still finished a respectable third. John Velasquez stays aboard. He rode him in his last 2. He does have the rail to work out a trip, but he is certainly the horse to beat off that last race.
All right, well, that is the 10 races here on this Friday afternoon at Gulfstream. Once again, a reminder, we do have that Rainbow Six carryover, $26,000, and Super High Five wagering starts in today's 4th race. It is Beat the Expert Day, and Ron Cheatsby Nicoletti is up, so we will see how he does today, as well as everybody else. You have 29 minutes to enter your picks. Do go on Facebook/Gulfstream Park to join. Again, it's been very popular recently.
It really has, and don't forget to use hashtag #BeatTheExpert on social media to let us and Ron know that you're playing and you're out for blood.
All right, well, best of luck on today's card. Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes.